Good evening. Happy Monday and welcome to another edition of the Opening Kick. It is a very special episode tonight. Why is it special, you ask? Because me and Smoke don't normally have guests. If we have a guest, there is a reason. And man, we had to bring in the legal big guns tonight because unless you're living under a rock, the college football world has changed once again. The House settlement was approved, and we're going to dive in tonight with Mr. Ty Hayes and see what that means for college football. As always, I got my man Gerald "Smoke" Dixon with me. How you doing, good sir?
You know what? I feel a little bit settled, but really unsettled. So that means I'm a part of the settlement.
There we go. We might dive into that from your side of it, Smoke. And as I alluded to, we have a special guest tonight. You've seen him all over our network. Also on All Around the Table Sports, one only Ty Hayes. What is up, good sir?
Man, happy to be here. Thank y'all for having me.
Awesome, man. Glad to have you. Been trying to get you on for a few weeks, but I'm kind of glad that it didn't work out because at that point, it was still in the works. Now it's kind of a deal, so we can talk about it fully. But we got more than just the House settlement to talk about tonight. A graphic caught my attention earlier this week. ESPN, FPI released their predictions for SEC teams to make the playoffs. We're going to discuss, do they get it right? Are they undervaluing, overvaluing? What are they doing right or wrong? And then we're going to close out the show with a little bit of fun tonight for you guys. So come on in the chat and join in. Me and Smoke, and if Ty's still with us, are going to give you the 5 best uniforms in college football. One of us might be a little more traditional. One of us might be a little more new age. I'll let you guess who that is leading up to it. With that said, man, we got an action-packed show. We're going to jump right into it. Hit that like and subscribe. If you're on Twitter X, come on over to YouTube, to the Bama Standard, so you can get all that awesome Bama content through the week. We got a special guest coming up tomorrow night. We'll touch on him later, so stay tuned for that. And before we get to the topic, real quick, we got to give a little love to the people that keep the lights on, and that is Lamstone Company. If you are ever dreamed of having that beautiful natural stone in or around your home, well, now is the time. Go to realrockstone.com after the show, of course. And that is Lamstone Company. They're located in Aniana, Alabama. They're one of the oldest, most trusted sources in the state. If you tell them we sent you using the promo code the Bama Standard, you can receive 10% off your purchase today. So go to Lamstone, give them some love after the show, of course. But man, let's hop right in it. We've got a guest. I've talked enough, but I'm going to give a quick overview, and then I'm going to let Smoke pepper our lawyer with some questions. NCAA settlement, the very broad overview. A lot of student athletes were suing the NCAA for back pay now that NIL is a thing, thinking they needed some money for NIL. Given the NCAA and college football's record in the court system lately, they decided, we might not want to do this because it was looking like it was going to cost them upwards of $10 billion. So they went through with the House settlement, and now it's looking like they are going to pay somewhere around $2.8 million in back pay from athletes from 2016 to 2024 for NIL. But what it also opens the door for is for universities for the first time ever to be able to pay their student athletes directly. Whew, that's a mouthful. I know I've missed some of it. The NIL clearinghouse go, the $600 line of demarcation for what this does. But I'm going to turn the floor over to my man Smoke.
Ty, you know what? Usually when I get on with a lawyer, I'm getting taxed a ton of money. This is probably the first time that I'm not getting taxed anything at all. We're trying to educate some our audience out there to kind of get a little bit more settled in the understanding of the legal side of the House settlement. And just hearing all that what Pettey just said and just reading into it personally, my first question to you is, does this open up another can of worms, another batch of lawsuit potentially for player versus institution?
Absolutely. And before I really dive in, I do want to clear up, because I am not an attorney. I am a paralegal. I work as a mediation coordinator. I do have extensive experience in the legal realm, though, right? In college, I had a minor in business law. I also competed in undergraduate moot court at the highest levels, placing top 10 in the nation twice. Now with law experience and this, and undergraduate moot court is a simulated Supreme Court trial. I actually argued in front of current sitting justices. So I do want the audience to be well aware of who I am. For those that don't know me, I am not an attorney, but I do have some experience. To answer your question directly, this is just the beginning. I think a lot of people were hoping that this settlement would tie a nice bow on what has been a contentious and chaotic, let's be honest, guys, 5 years, right? Like COVID was what it was, but that was the start in a lot of ways of how we ended up where we are now. I know it started well before that, but that was like a huge catalyst, a major change in that season, and everything has just accelerated since. This is the beginning of another set of issues that the NCAA is going to have to tackle. And furthermore, gentlemen, I do want everybody to know this. We have 30 days. I have on my calendar 30 days because they could still appeal this and take it to the Ninth Circuit. And analogous lawsuits, similar lawsuits to what we just saw right here, have been tried before. In fact, NCAA versus Alston, Pettey, you know, every time it seems like you and I are on a show together, I'm quoting Alston because I don't think people understand how big that was. That one was appealed, went to the Ninth, then went to the Supreme Court. So we have 30 days for this to be appealed, and there are multiple ways they could appeal it, but this is just the beginning of a brand new box of problems that the NCAA will have to sort out. Now, that being said, Smoke, they solved one major issue, and now there's a bunch of other issues that are lying in front of them. It definitely was a step forward, though.
So, in your professional opinion, do you think that they appealed this process?
I don't think so. I don't. And the reason is if I'm just looking at what the NCAA has done over the past few years and the direction I think that the NCAA wants to go, I don't think that they're going to appeal this because I think they realize the writing is on the wall. I talk about this all the time, but Smoke, I don't think you and I have ever talked about this. Last year in January, the NCAA actually tried to stop the unlimited transfers that we are currently facing in college football. A judge in West Virginia just said, no, you don't. You can't pass the Sherman Act. You are in violation of antitrust laws. I'm putting a 14-day injunction in. Kids, for the next 14 days, transfer as many times as you want. The NCAA bowed out of the fight completely. Like, they didn't even try it again when the 14 days was over. And that, to me, signaled that the NCAA is sitting here understanding that their inaction for years on years on years has led us right here. They are to blame for where we are. Anybody with the foresight that God granted a rock could have understood that this is where we were going to be at some point with compensation, and the NCAA and all their greed wanted to avoid it. So all of these problems they've created, I think they realize that, and now I think they're trying to navigate that because it's also costing them to appeal, right? They're losing a bunch of money.
Yeah. So when you start talking about money, like the $20.5 million cap that's been given to the institution, now it's upon the AD to allocate what funds that he or she wants to each particular sport. We know that football is probably going to get between 70 and 80% of it, right? The rest of it is going to be divided in basketball and the rest of the Olympic sports. Like, legally, how did they come to this conclusion of having a cap without having a collective bargaining agreement?
So that was actually something that I was really interested in. And I actually have the entirety of the House settlement agreement in front of me. And for anybody that wants to find this, you can online. And if anybody wants to write this down so that they can go take a look at it, if you go to page 11, paragraph, 3, line 17, and I quote, "First, the IRS permits the NCAA to modify current rules to permit schools to provide additional direct benefits and compensation to Division I student athletes that are worth up to 22% of the Power 5 schools' average athletic revenues each year, subject to specified yearly increases. It's been estimated that those yearly increases are going to be at about 4%. So it seems to me that that's kind of how they did this CBA. Right? Like, they probably just took this weighted average of all these places and said, okay, in between your TV deals, this seems to be something that is standard across the industry, and that's how we're going to allocate this. It is interesting to note, though, gentlemen, that this could be anywhere between $20 million and $23 million, because that $20.5 million figure, that's still an estimate from an economist that testified and wrote in to this settlement. But there are others that state it could be 23.
All right, so I'm not the wisest guy in the room, but I might be one of them. So you having a collective bargaining agreement. Where are the people that really are supposed to be represented and who represented them, which are the players?
Yes.
Did they have a say in this, or they just got something that was slapped on them and someone agreed to this?
So the answer is both, right? Because you had former players that were at the head of this lawsuit, like Grant House, for instance, who the House settlement is named after. You had former athletes who were at the table. But the more concerning thing to me is the other side of this you raise. You didn't have a true collective bargaining agreement. And that is something that absolutely concerns me, especially as we talk about what does this mean for the future. And I say that this is just the beginning. That's part of the reason why. I think things such as scholarship limits, I'm interested to see what they do with that. Title IX, what they do with that. And certainly with the yearly amounts. Gentlemen, the part that I don't understand is we have the model. The NFL has a model. And I just don't understand why you don't look at that and try and model it like that. Now, I understand different conferences make wildly different amounts of money. You're dealing with universities that aren't corporations, basically, aren't businesses. But at the end of the day, it seems that you had a model, and Smoke, to your point, that's concerning to me, that there were people at the table, but not in the way I think many people would hope.
Was there was there players? But they're not employees, but the one that's getting paid by the institution.
Keyword there, Smoke, employees. And that's it seems like the NCAA, and you talk about the NFL model. In the NFL model, the players are considered employees. So you have unions, you have things that protect you. And it seems like that's where the big line between the college game and this movement to the professional model is. They're kind of fighting naming them employees, which again, where's the representation for the collective bargaining come in on that? And that's where, how does that not open up the door to lawsuits all over the place?
Well, Pettey, here's another thing that whenever I hear about the NFL and college, the NFL also negotiated percentage of the revenue that's going to be allocated to them, not just a number that was made up or created by someone that
determine what market value is.
Correct. And they didn't have any representation at the table when the decisions were being made. That's why a lot of the players a few years ago, when they went on a strike to negotiate those fair market values for themselves, to make sure whenever the cap or the revenue share went up with TV deals, so did their salary cap. Like ensuring that they get paid the proper percentage agreed upon.
No, I completely agree. And that's why there were former players that were involved in this suit. Whether or not they consulted with current players, I'm not sure, right? I would have to really read into all of the pages of this and all of the pleadings and motions and orders that were put forth in this. I don't know the answer to that, but Smoke, that does concern me, because if there was one area, if you're asking me, hey, what are the easiest lawsuits you see arising 5 to 10 years from now, that would probably be on the top two, is how are we establishing fair market value? And the other thing, gentlemen, in the history of college football, we have already seen schools sue for TV media rights, saying, why should I get the same amount that Joe Dirt over there does when I draw in 6 times the viewership? So now I don't think we're far off from another one of those where you're going to have athletes kind of ticked off. But I also think there's a reality where you could have a university say, why am I getting the same amount of money as, no offense, Wake Forest, but Wake Forest when I'm always top 5? Every week I play, I'm top 5 viewed games. So why am I getting the same amount of money you are when you don't bring to the table what I bring to the table? This is just the beginning. There's a lot of good that I think came from this, but there's a lot of meat left on that bone.
Well, look, and let's dive into this market value. So this Deloitte group of the NIL Go determines, okay, and I had it a little wrong earlier, Smoke. If it's 600 or more, it goes to their clearinghouse to approve. Let's be real. Not all markets are created equal. The market in Dallas, Texas isn't the same as the market in Jackson, Mississippi. So when SMU says, hey, I want to spend $6 million on this left tackle, and how does Deloitte determine, well, the market value in Dallas is more than the market value in Jackson, Mississippi, so we can't give that Mississippi State offensive lineman that it's, I mean, again, it just seems like it's a Pandora's box of lawsuits for that.
Well, here's the thing, Pettey, and what you're talking about, that's not institution paying player.
Mm-hmm.
It's player getting an NIL deal on the side that doesn't have nothing to do with the collective, with that doesn't have anything to do with the allotted money from the institution. Those are the ones that's going to get looked at. The deals that are done within school by the school to player is going to be okay. The deals that's going to be looked at are the NIL deals outside of the university.
Well, and I guess that's what I'm saying. So you've got these companies in Texas that dwarf these smaller markets that have kind of been able to take advantage in this new NIL era that may swing the pendulum, and that could be something we bring up later. How does this affect bigger market programs versus small? But one more question, and before we get to that, man, we got a lot of people in the chat want to give some love to. Thank you for being here tonight, Daniel Berry Sports. My man, Jimmy Clay, we'll see you in Dothan in a couple weeks. Ken Appy, always with us. You got a couple questions we're going to get to. Tan, always glad to see you. K-Spray, Christian Love, Herb, happy birthday last week. Christian, glad y'all all here. Let's close it out on the legal side with this. There's a second step to this, and this gun kind of plays into the market value and maybe some protection. It seems like the power brokers, which are the SEC, the Big Ten, and somewhat the ACC and the PAC or whatever.
No, you had it right at first.
Yeah, the first. And then the other two claim to have a seat at the kids' table. But it seems like they're pressuring lawmakers into producing a congressional bill that would codify this settlement and protecting them from future lawsuits and that. I know that was a lot of big words that I had to read off of paper. Can you put that into
layman terms?
Tell me like I'm 5.
Absolutely, right? There's a reason why when Nick Saban was advocating for revenue sharing, he went to Congress. Because that's the next step. You need Congress to put forth these laws that not only allow for the student athletes to be compensated for them to get benefits, but on the flip side, protect the universities as well. And before we started, we were back in the green room talking, and one of the things that I think we lose sight of in this is in order for one party to succeed, so too does the other party have to, at some level, succeed. Just because you're sitting here like myself and saying, hey, the universities need some level of protection, do not be mistaken into thinking that I'm saying they should not be compensating these players. They should have been compensating a long time ago. It's a shame that it has taken this long to get where we are. But in order for the players to be able to be maximized in their earning potential and their benefits, we can't crumble the universities and what they are able to do, and then some of the tertiary effects that come with that. So what Pettey, you're saying is that step 2 of this is trying to get Congress to codify this in law to allow for players to get their benefits, to get their money, but also protect the universities from future litigation. This is the exact same thing Nick Saban was trying to do, and it was always insane to me that everybody that wasn't a Bama fan, everybody's a big word, but y'all know what I mean, was sitting here saying, oh, that Nick Saban, see, this is why he retired. He doesn't want players getting paid. And in my head, I'm like, you do realize that the model he's advocating for would net the average player more money than they're getting right now. because they would have revenue sharing and NIL capabilities. They would be better protected than they are right now. So that's step 2 to this, is seeing what Congress does. There was already a congressman today, and apologies, I cannot remember his name, where he was pleading with President Trump to do something about this, and actually cited Theodore Roosevelt, who did act from the legislative side, right? Help the legislative and the executive side act for the NCAA, or for college sports, right? I shouldn't say the NCAA at that point, but for college sports. So that's step 2 to this, is what can Congress do to codify this, to protect players and the universities?
That is a mouthful. Let's transition then. Smoke. We've gotten this legalese side of it. Man, Ty, thank you so much. You put this and you were able to explain it in ways, again, we couldn't. You may not be an attorney, but again, your mind in law is so much greater than ours, so we consider you one, and we appreciate that explanation. But Smoke, from a guy who's played on the field, who's been a coach, who's been a GM, you've literally touched him, and we're going to get to I'm going to get a question from your GM brain on this. But what's your just initial thoughts on this ruling? Because, man, you've touched every part of college football.
My initial first thought of it wasn't from the player side of view, because we checked on that already. They didn't have any representation. From the coach's point of view it's business as usual. You don't have anything to touch on. Like, you can't create anything with it. It's now on the personnel side, the general manager side. The job market, I think, is increasing for them. I think the second most important hire for a head coach moving forward is a general manager. And that falls in the same category with your offensive coordinator, your defensive coordinator. Because if you don't have the right players that hits the right value point with the ability to balance out that salary cap that we're upon right now, and also create marketing and the true meaning of name, image, and likeness opportunities for your athletes, you're going to be behind the 8 ball.
So would you say, Smoke, and we kind of talked about this earlier, when you're getting a limited amount of money, you now know what pot you've got to work with. Everybody's got to work with it the same way, and you're dividing it with your team. Does that not make the general manager the most important position on any staff in this country right now?
Yeah, I would say yes. Because in the model of when it first started, you had coaches that basically wanted to get a person that coordinated travel, a person that helped in terms of generating recruiting lists, and also helped with recruiting strategy. And then you had another model of the evaluator, the person that came in that you hired from, say, the NFL, that was a scout, that just went in the room and just cranked out reports and stacked the board on players that you should get. And then you had the other model where you had the person that would manage the cap, the person that would go in and be able to understand what each player was worth and try to go out there and find the money to pay the players. But now you need a combination of all three, a unicorn, because you have to be able to do all 3 jobs and do it at a high level. Because the days of the market not being correct, I think those days are gone. I think coming in with a cap, you're going to have the market be so correct for the next following 2 to 3 years that it's going to push back a lot of the 3x payment of players back to where it's under control. And most schools are going to be able to get and recruit the right players to build their team instead of going out there with an unlimited tap and getting all the best players and loading up a team and playing football.
Good stuff. I think you're right, Smoke. Look, it's on the coach to call get everything ready on game day. But if Saban said it most eloquently, I learned I wasn't a real good coach with bad players, and you've got to get the right guys. So it's going to force these coaches. You can't just load up on one position. You can't say, I'm going to go get this third wide receiver when you may need another offensive. Offensive lineman. It's going to put a big onus on that roster.
Petty, look at it like this. And Ty, you and I have played scenarios, okay? I'm the general manager of State University, and you are the general manager of A&M. Not the A&M, but A&M. This is a college football team. And you and I are operating on the understanding that we both have $14 million to spend on incoming players and also our own team, right, that's currently there. Now, the biggest issue in college football is the freshman market, right? Second with the transfer portal market. Those markets aren't correct because before there wasn't a cap that was put on your salary to go out and acquire those players, right? So if you're saying, well, we'll use a model of saying elite player, freshman player. Elite freshman player comes in and everybody says, oh, yeah, we got to pay him $2 million for an offensive tackle, right? Okay, well, if you're paying $2 million for a freshman offensive tackle, I'm going to tell that coach that player has to be a day one starter. So when you look at it, you have to look at it with the NFL model, if you're thinking about it, of just saying that player has to be a first-round draft pick. And when you have a first-round draft pick, it's called plug and play. Like, I don't have to worry about you anymore if you're going to command that. Now, with the $2 million, if that player is not a plug-and-play player and he's a freshman and you just want to get an elite player to make your recruiting class look good, well, you might sign that player up for a 2-year deal for $2 million. Yeah, that player is not playing in front of the left tackle that's already there currently on your team that's getting $300,000. So right now you flipped your roster upside down and you aren't managing it properly. Right? Now Ty's going to be on the other side and say, okay, good. Forget going after that elite player because that elite player is not going to help me until 2 years from now. I'll go out and go get a good player that's only going to cost me $200,000. And in 2 years, even if they don't play in 2 years, I've only spent $400,000 to get the same production that you have paid $4 million for. So those are the conversations that you have to have with a freshman cap. Now you spin it forward and you talk about the transfer portal market. Now those players that were receiving 3x the market value, yeah, you can't go out and spend that 3x on them anymore. Because again, the same issue is going to come into play. You pay $4 million or $3 million for a player, but you an offensive lineman that you need 16 of them on your team. Last time I checked, I don't know anyone that's won a national championship just because they had one offensive lineman. That's a cohesive group that has to work together. So you have to get someone in that can evaluate the talent, match the market value of player from high school to retention on your team, to maybe going out in the transfer portal to get set player, but also understand that we can't go over whatever your budget is for the offensive line to make sure that we get the best for ourselves that's going to play for the best. So that's where the mind of a true cap specialist comes in, but also an evaluator that can understand talent and project the talent for the foreseeable future, but also be able to go out and get the talent that fits their team the best without blowing yourself out the market and paying too much for one or two players. That's not going to truly affect the impact of winning.
Ladies and gentlemen, Smoke just, if you were paying attention, that he just gave you a GM sermon of what every GM is now dealing with in college football.
Good GMs. But
I got one more question to pose to Ty and yourself before we get to it. But man, before there was Marvin Constant, who thinks he's the greatest name from High in Tuscaloosa, there was a man named Dennis Riddle who was toting the rock when I moved to Tuscaloosa.
That's my dude.
He said, "What's up, Smoke?" D Riddle and what's up, Dennis, man?
Hey, I'm just happy that my man Riddle saying what's up to me, man. Listen, bro, you're one of the many reasons why I wanted to go to University of Alabama. And every time that I came across D Riddle, he's always blessed me with such great knowledge and information how to properly conduct myself when I was at the University of Alabama. And he was like a big brother to me, man. Super mentor. And that's one of the advantages of being around great Bama Psi 5 members. We're always educating each other. Whenever we see each other, we're always open in arms, greeting each other with love and respect. Listen, why wouldn't a young man want to go to University of?
See, hi, Dennis Riddle, man. Was the man when I got here in the mid 90s. I remember Dennis well, and Dennis had some cuts. Dennis can make the moves in the hole. All right, final question, though, guys. Let's hop on to it. Ty, you're a big market guy. You're over there in Texas. Smoke, you've been in the big markets of Alabama. You've been in the small markets of Vanderbilt and Maryland.
And I've been in the gold mine of College Park, Maryland.
There you go. So what does this mean? And when I say small market, people are going to think, SMU. No. SMU is no small market program, ladies. And if you don't remember the Pony Express of the 80s, they are in a prime position. So does this open up the door for the SMUs to ascend and maybe some of the smaller markets to fall? Ty, Smoke, I'll let y'all take off on this.
Yeah, listen, this opens the door for teams that, quite frankly, like Smoke said, that understand we're not going to overpay. We're going to get great value in our roster and then in our incoming talent, whether that be via the transfer portal or whether that be in freshmen, because that was a beautiful sermon that I hope people replay. Definitely should be cut into a standalone video, what Smoke just said, because it's brilliant. But for anybody that thinks SMU is small market, remember, whenever they were told, hey, you're not going to be able to benefit from the TV media rights immediately by moving to the ACC, they said, we're not worried about that. We don't care about that.
They cast themselves out.
They have money. Like, I went to that SMU Pitt game because Bama was on a bye week, and I'm like, this is a ranked matchup. This is playoff implications. I'm here. I was sidelined for that game. I was walking out. I can't tell you how many Ferraris, Lamborghinis. They've got shmoney. They don't care about this. This to them is just like another drop in the hat. But for small market teams, it's not necessarily what does this allow for them to do? That's certainly a question, Daniel. But to me, it's how are you going to divvy this up? And this goes for big market teams too. But in order to be competitive, are you going to forego funding your baseball programs, your softball programs? Are they just going to get an abnormally small slice of that pie? That way you can pay a little bit more than the Alabamas, the Ohio States, who are going to be a bit better, well-rounded, even though football will command the most, just to try and compete with them on the recruiting process or in the transfer portal. That, to me, is what I'm really wondering is, what are the secondary and tertiary effects of this going to be? What athletic programs will fall by the wayside as an unintended consequence?
Well, you know what, Ty? Just a roundabout thought that went through my head when I was processing all of this and just sitting down and reading through it like you read through it. They're trying to get rid of the collectives out of college sports.
Yes.
Right. And they're executing that. And because you can't control the collectives. The collectives are their own entity by themselves. And regardless of market, it comes to which booster, and they're trying to get rid of that too, can control the sport. Because as much as they want, they're trying to create parity, right? And when you get rid of or try to eliminate boosters and collectives, essentially you're saying these are the numbers that we've given and that you have on hand. ADs decide on what you want to do with it. And where the market in the small market and the big market comes from, because I don't want to give a whole bunch of play on exactly what I would do, because that's free game to everybody, and nothing is free in this world, not even the air that we breathe. This is general knowledge that I would try to pass by. Is you have to be able to create name, image, and likeness opportunities, and wherever that is, and whoever could do that, that might be an advantage to you. Because if deals are offered by your collective or by a booster, most likely will get rejected, not approved. But if said player does sign off on it, now that value is going to be counted towards the allocated money for your cap. So they're not punishing you by telling that you can't do it, but they're punishing you by telling you that whatever that deal is going to be deduction of what your original salary cap is that somebody within your department has budgeted for.
So what does that ultimately mean for collectives? I mean, is that
he put it best? They're trying to get rid of them because.
Does that mean does that mean that? And I say that, I know you explain, but what does that mean for like these programs? I'll use the one at Ole Miss, for example, who was a program that always seemed to have a glass ceiling, but in this world, they were able to create a collective that made them competitive. Does that cut the competitive advantage for a program like Ole Miss?
Absolutely, because again,
I believe so as well.
We're all operating under whatever that number is, the 70% of 20 or whatever percentage that your athletic director allocated to you. That's the number that's solely divvied up for the roster management of your team. So if Daniel Pettey wants to go out and get a deal by Oxford Hot Dogs and Links for $4 million that gets rejected by your third party representation, that $4 million, from my knowledge, reading all through the paperwork, will be a deduction from your cap number.
And once you've used all that cap number, and Ole Miss is a great example. They've kissed a little bit of success they haven't had, and now you take away their ability to do that. You're telling me they're not going to find ways around that cap to get that little extra money the way they use the shoebox on the doorstep, so to speak, like we used to do?
Petty, now you can't stop that. I think whenever you make rules and laws and you pass settlements, everyone's going to try to find a competitive advantage. And whatever that competitive advantage is, then whatever the punishment is for getting caught doing that, you have to live with those consequences of your actions. Wow. But we're just talking about just keeping it clean as possible and going by the letter of the law. That's what it is for now.
Yeah. Well, speaking of NIL, William Morris contributed to ours with a $5 super chat. Man, appreciate you, Mr. Morris. Will this facilitate or lead to a two-conference league of the SEC and Big Ten? And I think this gets to Kanafi's question as well. Or will they break away from the NCAA?
No, you know what? It seems like that's what was going to happen at the beginning. But it's not – every team does not have the same amount to spend. Mm-mm. And there's some schools that might allocate more towards basketball.
Oh, yeah.
And now the football side is going to say, well, how are we going to compete? So I can't say all Big Ten teams or all SEC teams. There might just be a group of teams that say, you know what? Forget all you guys. We can survive on our own. And we can take our ball and go and play against ourselves and still have the viewership, still have open competition, still have enough players that want to be a part of that set group of teams and move there. Because a lot of the time, William, we just make blanket statements by saying, hey, the Big Ten is going to make this move or the SEC is going to make this move. But we always forget the real reason why we cut the TV on, the players. Like the players have to want to go play for those schools.
Great segment and great segue, Smoke. The reason we turn the TV on. The reason we turn the TV on isn't for all this legal BS. And this is the time of year where every Joe Blow likes to make a list of the top schools that are going to do this. And I kind of blow most of them off. But when you want to get my attention is when you start using computers and throwing percentages out. And just this last week, ESPN FBI predicts SEC teams' playoff chances. Some of the numbers kind of caught my eye. Some teams a little high. Maybe some teams they're not giving much love to, guys. Oh, that's the wrong thing.
Hey, Petty, listen. Why don't you just go ahead and tell the truth, right? It's not that when it says FPI or predicts or SEC team, it's typically whenever you throw Bama or Ole Miss into something, and it don't sit well with you.
But oddly, Smoke, those weren't the teams that got my attention this week.
Yeah, shocker.
Well, actually, Ole Miss was.
BS on that.
Okay, maybe BS because I think Ole Miss's percentage is kind of shockingly high after what they lost. But they weren't the two that caught my attention the most. The two programs that have gotten the most all-season love, and maybe rightfully so because of what Lenore Sellers did at South Carolina, the defensive line they're returning, and also one Lagway at Florida that everybody thinks might be the next great thing down in the swamp. But you look at FBI for these two programs, and they got South Carolina at a 20% chance to make the playoffs. Hell, they were one game away from it last year. And Florida, and maybe they're looking at that schedule. Maybe they've heard something about Lagway's shoulder. We don't know. But 14% chance for the Gators, that could spell doom for Billy Napier. Guys, what are you seeing on this list that stands out?
Well, you know what, Pettey? I'm going to go back and just touch up on those two schools that you just said. And just give my thought on it. And I know they're using analytics that drives this with some understanding of player personnel. Like Florida, their front line of guys, and I mean they're 22, pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They can go out and play with most teams. But when you are looking at the model and the landscape of college football, it's survival of the fittest. And the team with depth over a period of time, the season, because injuries are going to happen. It's football. It's a car accident every single play. You're going to lose a lot of bodies, maybe for a week or two, maybe for the season. And when you don't have backups in the area of your defensive line, offensive line, you're going to struggle. You're one player away if you only have 6 guys on the offensive line that you can roll with. If you're not rolling 8 deep in the SEC in the trenches, I ain't worried about you. Because big people win games. Big people move little people, and big people over a period of time wear down other little people. And when you watch the season last year, the teams that had depth at the end of the year were the last few that was playing. South Carolina, I like what they have in terms of quarterback play on offense.
Mm-hmm.
But their offensive line, I question. I question their offensive line. I question the depth. I question continuity early. They have a new offensive coordinator, Mike Schuler. First year. Running back, up in the air. Haven't been cleared yet by the NCAA to play.
That's right.
Rasul Faison from Utah State. You have a guy that we just spoke of, a situation that we just spoke about a couple of minutes ago in terms of 5-star player Nick Harbor getting a ton of money out of the District of Columbia, Archbishop Carroll, to go down to South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, to create value and play for himself. We haven't seen much of that. He's been very underwhelming in terms of his play. Now, if you're picking a receiver that's coming off of the bus, that looks pretty, that runs fast, Nick Harbor's your guy. But playing the position with production, skill set, hands, route savvy, contested, tough catches, ability to catch the ball and score, you're not seeing that. So other than Lenore Sellers on offense, it's tough for me to say, you know what? Yep, there they go. Defensively, they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to control the line of scrimmage on both sides, especially in the tough and rough SEC, Big Ten, to be able to get in the conversation of being a top 3 teams at the end of the year to get that bid to be in the playoffs.
Good stuff, Smoke. Ty, I'm gonna shoot this to you. The other trend that I noticed. This is a very, if you're looking, this is a very tiered percentage group. You've got 3 teams that are standing out above the rest, and then there's kind of a dramatic drop off to 4 teams that they think are in the 30% range, saying they've got a third of a chance to make it. And then after that, it's a huge drop off. But man, it stood out. Look, Texas, with their schedule, what they got returning, I think you'd be insane not to think that they had the best shot to not only win the SEC, but to make the playoffs. But then you look at Georgia, who a lot of people have questions about the quarterback. The defense didn't have the teeth it did last year. They're at 78%, and then Bama at 66%. But then there's a huge drop off into the 30s. Man, Do you think they got that right, Ty? Are these three programs kind of separated from the rest of the league right now?
I'd like to think so, but with Bama, I have to see it. I think there's all the talent in the world, but it's still an evolving system change. I'm really excited to see what they can do. I do think that when you look at some of the questions that are in the SEC, I do think that they have Alabama right at third. With Texas, it makes sense. They have a lot of talent. They lost a lot of talent to the NFL draft, but Kyle Flood has done an amazing job at recruiting that offensive line there. When you look at what Sark inherited, you were talking about an offensive line that when you looked over a 4 to 5 year period had not recruited along with their peers, that had not been able to get the guys that your other big time universities were able to get. That's why they had some of those struggles. I call Texas's recruiting class before Sark empty calorie recruiting. Guys, when you go to McDonald's, you get that McDouble, you get the fries, it's a meal. But is that really a good meal? No, it absolutely wasn't. It didn't have all of the nutrients you need. Sark has fixed that. And he's done it with guys that are phenomenal developers, that are phenomenal coaches. Kyle Flood loses a lot of guys on the offensive line. He's going to replace them with absolute dudes. I'm excited about Arch. I have not let that be a secret. I'm excited about the Horns. Bama's in that position where they lose some key pieces, a Tyler Booker, but I also love that you get into Cam Dewberry. You get in some really good recruits. You have some guys like a Geno Vandemark that has positional versatility. So you have some things on the offensive line. I think the secondary is going to be one of the best in college football based on the youth it had last year. They're not young anymore. You got some guys that have played some real hard, real high-level football. Can't wait to see that. When I look at Georgia, it's Kirby. They've recruited well. I don't think that this is your 2021, 2022 Georgia roster, but it's still a really good roster that, dare I say, 98% of college coaches would say, yeah, I'll take that roster right now. Tennessee, big question, replacing Nico, right? You get a guy that I'm excited to watch. And Smoke, I'd really love to hear you talk about this after, but I'm going to be enamored with Tennessee in the quarterback play because it seems to me that the guy they got is coming from a system that the one at Tennessee provides more answers to the test than the one he's coming from does, right? When you talk about that Heupel, veer and shoot, it seems like that's a system that kind of helps the quarterback see the defense more clearly when you're spreading it out that much and you're getting that guy into the box. It makes the defense choose, and that choice gives the quarterback more insight. I do want to talk quickly about South Carolina because I completely agree their offensive line is a question for me. But, gentlemen, let's not forget they lose Kyle Kennard to the NFL draft. They lose Tonka Hemingway to the NFL draft. They've got an absolute man-child on one end, Dylan Stewart. How are teams going to account for him when you don't have a Kyle Kennard on the other side, when you don't have a Tonka Stewart on that interior? I think Dylan Stewart's as good as they come in college football. Petty, when we were talking a few weeks ago about top 5 guys in what was it, college football, he was one of them for me. He's that good. But because he's that good, you can't hide him. They know he's there. And you don't have the supplemental arsenal, at least right now from my point of view, to make me feel like you can't just pool resources to him. This list is very interesting. I think Florida's a team. Smoke hit it best. Their starters are great. I also think this is a product of their schedule being awful. So this is a fascinating list.
All right, one quick question.
Let me get to Ty's question.
I would love to hear this.
And you're talking about Joey Aguilar.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
Okay. Now, when you watch Josh Heupel's offense over the years have tremendous success, it's because the quarterback doesn't turn the ball over. As much as the Tennessee fans want to say Nico wasn't a productive player, Nico didn't put the ball in harm's way. And that offense is a rhythmic offense in the sense of getting the ball to the right player and not turning it over. Because when you turn the ball over, just like anything else, it just muddles everything. And it's not like they're bleeding the clock. So a turnover for them, it really crushes the flow of their entire team, defensively, special team-wise, offensively. And one thing that Joey does at a high level is interceptions, poor decision making over his career. If you watch his turnovers, and once a quarterback gets a double-digit turnovers, yeah, that's something that you need to fix. And I don't think you're fixing that in terms of on-the-job training when you have said Dylan Stewart breathing down your neck.
That's fair.
Good stuff. All right, quick question. We're going to do a hot corner before we get to our final topic and give a little love to our final sponsor as well. Of the group that's next, past Bama, that there seems to be 4 of them 30%, and they got Auburn and South Carolina around the 20%. Of that group, who do y'all see real quick? One hot take of who did they miss on that could make the playoffs?
Go ahead, Ty.
Listen, Oklahoma is a team I wouldn't necessarily sleep on. They had a CVS list of injuries last season. If they can stay healthy, Brent Venables is a great defensive coach. Yes, they lose their middle linebacker to the NFL. They were 3 deep at that position. They have got some guys. Kip Lewis is going to be so much fun to watch. And they get a quarterback in John Mateer with his offensive coordinator, a guy that was very productive at Washington State. Oklahoma is a team, to me, that at 18%, I think we also have to understand why they were so bad last year, and they were the most injured team in college football.
Man, we talked about them a lot, Ty. They're a very unique situation with the young quarterback, all the injuries, but the defense still held up, and everybody just kind of lost sight of a lot of that. I think that's a great take. Smoke, who you got?
Petty, give me that group of give me that third.
Okay, the group. Yeah, I texted it to you. I didn't realize Smoke is on. Can't see our list. Okay, the group of 30%ers. You got Tennessee at 38, Texas 8-4 at 34, which I think is the most overrated because prove it to me. Ole Miss at 30, LSU at 30, and then Auburn at 21.
You know what? I'm really interested in that LSU group. Okay, for the simple fact that there's a ton of pressure on them, but they've done a phenomenal job of talent acquisition. And as much as anybody wants to say about BK not being able to win game 1 of the regular season, I still believe he's one of the better coaches. Mm-hmm. And I'm speaking of Brian Kelly in college football. Okay. So you have the best quarterback, in my opinion, NFL-ready quarterback in the SEC with Garrett Nussmeier. Offensive line, I think they've done a pretty good job of dressing it for the most part. Receiver-wise, you've done a tremendous job with the Anderson boys, Nick and Aaron Anderson, and Barryon Brown. And on defense, they've created enough players on the front line to create pressure, which squeezes the air out, which squeezes the pocket, and going out and getting Mansour Delane from Virginia Tech, another DMV boy. I keep on telling you guys, the DMV got the best area players. And being able to...
I would argue that Texas, that there's an area in Texas.
Yeah, listen, I'm just pumping up my area, but we did say...
I wouldn't push it.
Did say, the best pass rush in college football is Dylan Stewart.
I wouldn't push hard against it. Smoke, you don't know this, Petty, you do. My mom is 30 minutes outside of Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
So my family, I'm the only one of my family in Texas.
Okay.
Everybody else is in Virginia, and then it's in New York. So I'm very familiar with the DMV, and that area is so slept on in terms of the talent that's there. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's slept on until all the big-time schools come up there. Cut it out, Bevo.
So many people.
Go up there, and I respect Colin Simmons so much, Bevo.
But Stewart's
but
next.
If you had to go 1-2, you got to say the young boy Dylan is up there too. But I think LSU has a chance.
Okay.
I think they have a realistic opportunity if they get it together. But out of that team, talent-wise, I would go with that group right there.
I like the answers, guys. Love the answers, actually. All right, before we get to our final topic, which was sure to get people happy with probably more me than Smoke this time, which is rare, let's give a little love to the title towel at whitwillsports.com. Look, it's off season, so you can take it with you to the beach because we're not going to Coleman or Bryant-Denny right now, but you can have it ready. So go to whitwillsports.com today. Give them the promo code STANDARD. Get 20% off and get that beautiful title towel delivered to you today. Don't hesitate.
The only thing, Petty, just don't tell the chat world out there and our viewers out there that you're wrapping this towel around you. It's not big enough, right? So this towel is only used to wipe up like your face, like sweat. Petty's a different type of guy. He'll try to stretch this out and try to wrap it around himself. So.
I may walk out in the house with it, just it taped to each side.
Listen, Petty,
like a loincloth.
Mature behavior only. Mature behavior only.
Ty is a special guest with this night, so I don't have a really fun graphic. But Ty, we would love for your input on this. So once you see them, you can start formulating your head. So we'll give you a few minutes. Smoke, you want to go first? You want to give me the honors on this next one?
You know what, Petty? Since you're the older one, age before beauty, and I'm not even good looking either. So you winning on both of those. You're older and you're better looking. So go ahead and go first.
Okay. Look, we're going to talk top 5 uniforms in college football. And this is what I think are the best, not the most traditional, because if it was most traditional, there is no debate.
Hey, whoa. You can't.
I just said that because I'm about to get heat.
Bro, you're only allowed to speak about your list.
Okay. All right.
Don't talk
this
about
is
mine.
Petty.
You don't got to send mine up. I'll set up myself.
This is Petty's top 5.
There you go.
Number 5. Hold on. Let me take this off so y'all can see it. Look, man, they came down to Starkville, Mississippi in 2000 and wore that thing in the middle. And it was before the uniform game got really crazy. Everybody was still kind of traditional. And they showed up in some highlighter yellow with some aerated shoulder pads that pissed off everybody in Starkville and kicked Mississippi State's ass. So from that time on, give me them duck uniforms. I know people hate them, but I love them every week. I look forward to them. The one traditional I do have on here, look, man, it doesn't get better than that golden dome and that navy blue. It's just a beautiful thing. I even love it when they pull out the green. This next one, LSU. Look, this shows that I can take off my rival glasses because screw you coon asses. But when they wear that purple, I prefer the purple. I wish they wouldn't wear the white so much. But when they do the white helmet in the purple, good gracious, chef's kiss. And before my number 1 decided to go all in on the uniform game, my favorite uniform in all of college football was when those Tar Heels wore that full-blown Carolina blue. Gosh, it was a thing of beauty. Still is a thing of beauty. But unfortunately for them, those Ole Miss Rebels finally decided we got the best uniform college combination in all of football, and we're about to rip it. I mean, that's 6 straight games to open the season. It was all works of perfection. But that powder blue on red is the best uniform in college football, hands down. Let me have it, people. I know you're going to be like, where's Bama? Where's all this? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, there's no orange ranked on there. We don't put orange on this list. Wait, maybe some of us do. Smoke.
Yeah, Petty. See, I'm not petty, right? I'm not petty tendergrass. I'm actually an old soul that likes clean. Like when I dress, it has to be clean. I don't need all the flash. I don't need a lot of change up. I just like clean, sleek, modern, classic. All right. So in no particular order, right? I'm gonna start off with LSU.
Ooh.
When it's all white, and everybody knows purple is one of my favorite. Purple is my favorite color. And when you see the eye of the tiger and that purple and that yellow come together, I just think it's just a clean look. Like you don't need all that other crazy colors to make something look good. That causes too much chaos and confusion. 2, like you just said, Notre Dame. Any way, any fashion. When you start talking about gold, yeah, gold is legendary. It's simple. When you see it, it's a standard of excellence, and how it looks. Like you have to tuck it in. You got it. You can't have it all hanging out with it because you'll be screwing up the uniform. Next up, SC.
Woo! Like, Troy.
Come on, man.
It don't
get any better than that. It don't matter if it's Reggie Bush. It don't matter if it's Leinart. It don't matter going all the way back to Marcus Allen. It just don't change. Clean, excellent, awesome.
Hey, and look, maybe arguably the best uniform game in all of college football is when they play UCLA. Great call.
Hey, just saying, bro. And then I got to go to my alma mater.
Roll Tide.
Right? For me, it's the away jerseys, the all white.
Yes.
Yeah, just the all white. And I love playing on the road because I love the 100. Ability to go in your backyard, spank you, walk out, looking clean as possible, all white, knowing that I just came to your funeral and I was supposed to wear all black and murder you. Just a Bama look.
Absolutely. That Bama all white is.
And then Bevo.
I give it.
Said free smoke. Texas. That burnt orange, and again, I'm telling you, when it's all white, it don't matter if it's Earl, Ricky, Vince, my good partner Aaron Williams, my old partner Big Baby Shawn Rogers. It just never changes. It just looks clean, classic, clean. All of my schools win, and everybody on my list are national champions. I don't know about yours, baby.
I don't have all mine won a national title. Wait, I don't know about North Carolina. They win a national title. I might
Man,
not have.
hey, listen. If you got to ask yourself and question yourself,
hey, I'm going on looks, man, not wins. But I cannot argue with your list, Smoke. I love Texas. That all white. I can't argue with that ever. But my man Ty, can you argue with these lists, or you guys show us up? What have we got, my man?
Listen, this is the benefit of being the youth on the panel, right? Because my list encompasses both sitting at high school waiting for those free magazines, because I went to a poor high school, so waiting for those free magazines to hit up front. That way we could all go see what Oregon was going to come out for the first game of the year. So my number one is Oregon. Listen, love it or hate it, it gets the people going. It's provocative, right? That's what Will Ferrell was talking about in Blades of the Glory, was Oregon's uniforms. They do some cool stuff. They just have some clean uniforms. I know they're flashy. They're all over the place. But my number one is Oregon's because they're different. They're really cool. My number two is Bama. You don't mess with perfection, and Bama's uniform is classic. It's clean. And so I'm able to appreciate what Oregon does while also understanding you don't touch perfection. And speaking of, number three is Notre Dame, another one. It's just classic. You know when you see that gold helmet what it is, right? Little Rudy's somewhere cheering them on, and I'm cheering Rudy on. So I love it. Number four is USC. Smoke, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. USC, great pick. But my number five, I'm so shocked that y'all didn't say this. And Bevo, I'm sorry to tell you, Oregon may have 1,000 uniforms, and all 1,000 of them are better than Texas's. My number five is Louisville. Guys, when Louisville comes out with that all-red uniform, you can't tell me that thing's not clean. Then when they come out with that gray, Louisville's got some really cool stuff. I always like seeing what they're going to wear, and I feel like it's one nobody thinks about. Give me Louisville for number five.
I like it. It's the helmets that throw me with Louisville from time to time. They'll get a little wacky with the bird, but no, I love it. Ty, I'm glad you were able to you threw in a little curveball with us. We all seem to agree on Notre Dame, so I guess Notre Dame might be.
Well said, Ty. I'm with it.
We got 2 more minutes of smoke. Can we hit the questions real quick, or we got to go?
Yeah, get to it so we can tell them what's coming on tomorrow.
All right. Yeah. Hey guys, before we lose smoke tomorrow, Red Morgan from the University of Alabama defensive back staff, great on special teams his rookie year, looking to be in that rotation, will be with us tomorrow night on the Bama Standard, so don't miss out. 6 Central, 7 Eastern. Alabama's own Red Morgan with us tomorrow night, and I've heard from a little bird, he is very excited to meet a former defensive back that's also on that show with me, Mr. Smoke Dixon.
Tony Dixon might be coming on, and it ain't me.
Maybe he got the Dixons wrong. They're right at the same time, right? All right, first question, Knappy. Okay, this we answered before. SEC, Big Ten, combined forces. It's coming. Wonder which sports will this cover? So he's asking about the 20. It's the 20.5. Does that cover every sport? Are all of them going to get like a point percentage?
Somebody's going to get something, just no matter of how much.
But what this does, Knappy, is this really hurts the Olympic sports. They're cutting their roster sizes. So there's kids that were on scholarship this year that won't be next year because of the cutting of scholarships. That's where it really hurts.
Rowing will get 35 cents.
Tough as nails. Pay for play, and then they can transfer. Has to be some contracts.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole. I mean, there's contracts out there, and pay for play is essentially what it is. I think this regulates the transfer portal market more than anything, and it's going to force coaches and teams to put a cap on the freshman class and freshman players.
That, and very quickly, This is the first step in the NCAA being able to go in front of a judge and say, we can pass judicial scrutiny when it comes to our antitrust structure. That's how they can start being able to rein in the transfer portal or be able to say, hey, we can do something about the transfer portal. That's the whole reason they can't do anything right now, is because they can't pass antitrust scrutiny. This is the first step in them being able to do so.
Good stuff. K-Spray, what will this settlement do as far as the states that were allowing NIL in high school? I think Texas, Tennessee's jumped aboard. I don't know. I have no idea.
It's up to the states.
It's up to the states, right? Because another thing, and we'll get to Josh in a second. Yeah. Another thing, Pettey, that we didn't touch on, or a lot of teams this year front-loaded their contracts.
Yes.
And a lot of schools are paying commits right now just so they don't get taxed into this cap. So a lot of teams front-loaded contracts. So easy number. Just say if you signed a deal for $1 million, they might have already paid you $800,000 of it already. Meaning when July 1st hit, you might only be on the books for $150,000. Just a simple number. So those are just ways that some GMs and some organizations and some schools are attacking the new model of college sports in itself. And I got some other ideas of how you can attack it too, just visiting with some of my cap guys how to move and market around, knowing the rules behind it. But again, my intelligence, my intellect must be paid for.
All right, guys. So we'll get to where you can contact him real shortly after these last few questions. Josh Haney, I think he asked this while we were doing the FBI predictor. Why is Georgia so high, or why is Georgia so high on their quarterback? Stockton proved he was great against big teams. Arch also looked like deep ball or iffy unless Manning's trained him a good bit more than Texas might be a miss. That's a word salad.
Yeah. Just to wrap this up, so I got to get out of here.
Yeah, I got to go.
Well, I mean, Gunner is what we saw was hit and miss. Right, one game he looked in the back half of one game he looked solid. When he had to start, he didn't look so good. I mean, he had a whole entire offseason to improve. I mean, skill set is there for him to improve. I think he gets a little bit better. But again, when you think about football is not played only by one position. Quarterback is the most important position. But more than so, you need to protect on both sides. You need to protect your linebackers and your secondary by applying pressure up front and stopping the ball from getting ran down your throat. And on the offensive side, you need to be able to protect the quarterback, but also be able to move other people around to run the football. So I think that's where Georgia is making their hay in traditionally what we know of Georgia football. And with the Arts thing, like in due time, man, everybody always wants to be proven right or wrong. I think it's okay for some of us to sit back and just watch.
His name is going to
see what it is.
The name brings the scrutiny on that one, I think. But
good luck.
Last question.
Both of those guys are 2 for 2. I would bet on Manning.
Smoke, if you're GM, who you want as your head coach, Sarkisian or Lanning?
Both. I'll take a shot.
This politician
TV show, you take a shot.
All right, politician, tell them where they can find you, where they can hire you. What you going for, Smoke?
Well, Ty, you know what? Since you're the guest, I'm gonna let you go ahead and tell the world where they can find you, because everybody knows they can find me simply at Coach GV Dixon. Mondays I'm here with Pettey, and you know this is the first time that I've ever had anybody with anything with law, legal, and Pettey's not getting arrested. So I am shocked that something's not happening right now, but it's okay. On Tuesdays, you can find me with this guy, my guy Justin Riley, Marvin Constant, Steve Brown, and also Stephen M. Smith, and the muscled up guy Marvin Constant on the Bama Standard. Like we say, we got DB tomorrow with Mr. Reds popping up. We're gonna have a good conversation about how he's going to improve, what he needs to improve, and what he's gonna show the world, and how to get into that rotation. So if I'm you, I'm pulling up tomorrow. Let's talk some Bama football.
Good stuff. And Ty, again, man, we appreciate your time so greatly tonight. You always say it so eloquently on our show. Time is the most important commodity one can have, and you spent yours with us tonight, spreading that knowledge. We appreciate it. Where can we find you, my brother?
Yeah, thank y'all for having me. First and foremost, it's always so much fun to talk with you, Daniel, and Smoke. This is the second time I've gotten to do something with you, and both times have been an absolute honor. You do a great job on the Bama Standard. You do a great job with 24/7 and CBS. It's something where if you guys aren't aware, you're going to learn a lot. In terms of where you can find me, you can find me over on Twitter at ATS Sports Show. You can find me on YouTube at Around the Table Sports. You can find me here Tuesday evenings, Friday evenings. You can find me on Bleacher Report, where I am one of the hosts for the College Football Pick'em Show. I've brought home the trophy twice, 2 years in a row, back to the Bama fan base. 105-28 last year. I plan on making it a three-peat this year. And you can find me on Bleacher Report covering Alabama football. So anywhere where they will give me an opportunity to talk college football is somewhere where you will find me.
Good stuff. And man, Ty, again, thank you so much, brother. Smoke, always enjoy sharing the stage with you. I'm your host, Daniel Pettey. I'm all over the network. See you tomorrow night with Smoke on the Bama Standard. Then I'll be on the final whistle with my man Ty later that evening. But as always, catch us here on the Opening Kick every Monday at 7 Central. See you next time.